to Lookout, and they were willing to let me go on the FZ-07 also. Now, we'll be able to get a good comparison. Now, this is much more. The seat's lower, at least it feels lower. Bars are not quite up in your face as the FZ-09. Much tighter together. Grips, much better off idle, obviously, as you've probably heard by now. It's more like a step-through motorcycle. I don't like the fact that the bars angle down. So, but you know, it's easy enough to ride. If you're just looking for something to ride, this thing is fine. And that's one reason why I wanted to ride it again. I rode it the first time in Johnstown. It's sort of like an a yuppie motorcycle, let's put it that way. Much more sedate bike than the others. You know, you can feel the twin rumble already. I'm at 4,000 RPM. Just pulling out of here. I mean, this is a get you down the kind of road kind of bike. The tendency to drop it down instead of turning it because the bars are so long. Back away from the rake's so much higher. You have to be careful not to just sit up and drop the bike down, I guess. I'm hoping this guy doesn't do anything really stupid on this bike. And there's always at least one guy. And these two juveniles, I can see they're already getting a third degree for this guy. Just making sure they don't slingshot out. So here we'll be able to see if we can keep up with an R6. 7,000, 8,009, no. Full throttle. I didn't see that car, where he came from. No, I had to work it to get it up to 62 miles an hour. So no, you're not keeping up with an R6 on this bike. Not to mention an R1. But it moves. You know, it's not going to get you any acceleration awards, but it moves. I would feel a little bit more comfortable than on a Ninja 300 in terms of the power. But I don't think it's much faster than a Ninja 300. I have to take back my initial estimation of it. Of course, it doesn't help to have the damn tachometer. These brakes are not all that impressive either. Does not help to have the damn tachometer so small, so hard to read, and you're trying to use all the RPMs. But on the other hand, it will run out of power well before you reach red line. About 8,500, 9,000 RPM, so you're not going to run into too much trouble. But you know, here I am, you know, on this bike with maybe 75 horsepower peak, and keeping right up with them, at least cruising down in traffic. I just feel, and I got the feeling right there when that car was next to me, this bike is barely able to outrun traffic. That's where the real problem is with these smaller bikes, the 300s and so forth. And this is a 700, you know, it's a twin 700, whatever. That's one reason I wanted to ride the FZ-06R, because I have a sneaky suspicion that the 4s are significantly more powerful than the twins at higher RPMs. And that's what you're getting when you pay the extra money for a 654 versus a 650 twin. Now, at the low to middle RPMs, they're about the same, and that's what you're saving when you buy the twin, is the extra cash that a 4 would cost you that you don't really need. Third gear, 56 miles per hour, and let's go to fifth at 60 and pulling 6,000 RPMs. 5,000, sorry. Nice mellow buzz coming up through the seat. Not much vibration, a little bit of vibration in the hands. But what I don't like is I'm holding on. I'm having to pull myself into the handlebars. Easy enough to fix by leaning forward, but the tendency is to sit up on these bikes, which you have to fight. I don't want to be at 75 miles an hour having to pull myself onto the up forward. But the problem is I had the same problem as the ZX-12, because the bars are just a little bit too high, and it just doesn't quite gel with my riding style. But, you know, I never would have done that on the FZ-09. Pull off the clutch in the middle of the turn. This guy needs to stop with the hand signals and just ride his ride. That's why I hate riding with kids, because they just ride like idiots sometimes. But I see older guys do the same shit, like the knees and the legs out, pointing out crap left and right. I mean, you don't need that. You know, when you're trying to ride a strange bike, you don't need to worry about somebody popping their hands. Now on this one, you know, there's still a lot of throttle twitch over bumps. It's not like it's free of throttle twitch. You know, I'm riding it at some ridiculous RPM, 5,000 RPM, I guess. Thing is, where's the middle? The middle is 6. So at the fattest part of the bar, it's 6,000 RPM, which I guess is supposed to give you a visual reference that it's the fattest part of the power band. Nowhere near smooth. Oh shit, I don't want to downshift, that's for sure in there. Nowhere near as smooth as an R6. You're just a goofy riding position. This is what I'm saying. A bike that's not as good as an R6 is not going to be a great bike. You just have to give it a little bit more room, because it doesn't have the sophistication of an R6. But it's a motorcycle, and you know, sure, you know, for whatever, you know, I'm riding. Here, let's go for a ride. But I think it's just a grown-up scooter compared to an R6. I feel like I'm riding a scooter that has pegs instead of a step through, and I still feel that the throttle is twitchy. The power delivery is twitchy because I'm riding it at a higher RPM than I really ought to. I'm riding it at, now I jumped up to 5th. And I mean, it's going, and this is the real issue that I wanted to see, is how adequate is it to ride, you know, at high gear on back roads? And the problem is I'm riding with people who, you know, I wouldn't normally be riding with other people. I think it's quite fast enough for riding on the back roads at fourth gear, 5th gear. You know, 5th gear is probably a little high, and that's at 4,500 RPM. I can kind of feel that the 2 pistons working. Each 2 piston of the 2 pistons working. But we're rolling, you know, 50 miles an hour. So my summary is, if you like scooters and you want a motorcycle, this would be a good transition to a motorcycle from a scooter. And it is adequate as a motorcycle or as a scooter, except you can't step through, and it won't have the carrying space of a scooter. And so the immediate question I would have then is, why would you want to buy this instead of a scooter? A scooter has less power, but can still go as fast. It can't accelerate as fast, but it can still go the same speeds, and it has much more carrying capability than this bike has. It gets much better miles per gallon, and you don't have a clutch. So and it probably, I don't know, maybe cheaper, may not be cheaper. This bike is cheap enough. Well, we got totally separated from the group. Oh, there's some groups behind us. I was so busy watching behind us, I didn't keep up with these guys. I think we're going to take it easy here. There he goes. Oh, look at that guy. All right, right with him. That was up to 11 grand. Dude, cut that shit out, okay? And stop worrying about giving people hand signals. Yeah, I can see what you don't want to give these guys too much rope. So what I want to do is I want to say, okay, I'm in 6th gear. I'm pulling 3,500 RPM. How do I feel riding this bike at 55 miles an hour faster? I want to do the opposite of an acceleration test. I want to do a cruise test. Now there's a rumble, and I'm doing 56, and it's pulling 4,000 on the nose, 55, 4,000 on the nose in 6th gear, and there's a rumble. The exhaust is very mute, very low. The wind is not pushing me back at all. 50, 55. This is what this bike is made for right here. I have the feeling it's very competent this. This is plenty of speed for the back roads, even for straight roads like this. You're rarely going to go 65. Usually speeds will be 60 or below. Especially if you get stuck behind somebody or you're coming into a town, speeds will drop. This is exactly what this bike is made for right here. Pulling 4,000 RPM on the nose at 55 miles an hour. Steering is nice, not too heavy, not too light. Responsiveness is nice. The brakes are a little weak. That's the only thing I would really think is an issue. Is you need to be very careful with the brakes. It'll take a lot of pressure to stop this bike. And when you have a lot of pressure on the brakes take pressure. They tend to stop late. You tend to over squeeze at the last minute. And it's easy to lose the front at the very last second you're trying to stop. All right, 3rd gear roll on. It rolled on from about 3,000 right up to 6 without a problem. I didn't have to downshift. Oh yeah, I mean, this bike will get you up to 100, well at least 80 easily. I don't know about 100, but 80 fairly easily. It'll get you into trouble. It's got enough power to get you into trouble. And you can ride like a jackass, there's no question about it. But if you ride it moderately, it seems to be quite confident. Now, of course, the R6 doesn't have any low-range power. So if your guy's rolling on from a low enough RPM, yeah, sure, I'll be able to stay with him. If he winds it up, I'm in trouble. But at 50 miles an hour, yeah, it's fine. Look at this shit. Yeah, the engine just runs out of juice at 9,000 RPMs. And it'll rev, but it will run out of power very abruptly. I think with this bike, your major concern will be the weather, where the weather has enough power. It would be interesting to try to ride this on a long ride. I think it can handle it quite well. See what kind of mileage you get. So anyway, I don't think the FZ-07 is immune to the throttle issues of the FZ-09, so I don't think that's the answer. But it doesn't have the power, and it's not as bad as the A mode on the FZ-09. But the FZ-09 A mode is not all that bad either. And that is my summary.